Hi, everybody. I think the live has started. It always loads, and I never know if it's started or not. Okay, it looks like we're live now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 7 of the 12 Days of Archetypes. We are making our way through this so quickly, it seems like. We're diving into the Enchantress archetype today, which I'm super excited about. But let me get my little system set up really quick, and then I'll see who's on and we'll dive into it all. I'm just gonna pull up your charts with the post. 1 second. Where is it? Here we go. All right, so today we are, let me know if you're on in the comments. Oh, I see some people. G, Davina, hello, hello. If you're on, say hi so I know who's here. Comments are always kind of wonky with the lives. I guess it just depends on the day. Trilani, Lena, hello, hello. Cool. Okay, I'm so excited. I can see, okay, so I think I've told you all about my system before, but I have 3 different Facebook tabs up. I have my live, and then I have the live in the group where I can like watch myself, but it's like delayed a couple seconds, and so it's always really trippy. But that on that page I can see all of the comments come through, but it only shows me for a time. And then I have another Facebook tab open to see the charts. So it's a whole thing. Yay. Okay. So tell me, hi Chanel. Oh my gosh, I love seeing all of these names pop up. Okay, first of all, tell me, whoever's watching live with me now or on the replay, tell me if you are the Enchantress, if you're Scorpio rising. I always love to hear how this is landing for you. If it's resonating, if it's not resonating, it gives me really good feedback into, what to talk about next, or to explain in a different way, or what to move on quickly through, because we all get it, right? Scorpio rising. Yay! I can't believe that we're already on day 7 of this live extravaganza, if you will. So I really like this when we get to, yesterday was the harmonizer, but I feel like it starts to get really, really exciting with the archetypes when we get to the Enchantress, because Scorpio and on, for like the second half of the zodiacs archetypes, they from the start, so from Aries, they all start to build on each other. And it doesn't mean that like Pisces, which is at the very end of the cycle, it doesn't mean that Pisces is better or anything like that. It just means that everything gets really, really layered and really complex the deeper we get into the archetypes. So around this point with Scorpio, it starts to get really just like complex in a good way, like really mysterious, lots to talk about, lots of layers to peel back. So I always find it very exciting. Total Scorpio, me, I'm the Enchantress. Awesome. Chanel, yay. Excited to see you on a live. Chanel is a winter brand, which I told her people are very, very jealous of the winter brands, because those are the only ones that can use pure black and pure white and do it in an authentic way. And I feel like that goes with the Enchantress really well. Trelawney said we Pisces are definitely layered. Yeah. Okay, so where should we start with the Enchantress? So let's start about her. Let's start with her name. How many of you actually resonate with the name Enchantress, and how many of you kind of get this image of some like sexy, like witch and like dark layered like silk clothes kind of vibe? If that's the case, then you can use any other name for this archetype. The main name is Magician. You'll hear me kind of fluctuate in between if I'm calling her the Enchantress or if I'm calling her the Magician. But she goes by a lot of other names as well. There is one expression of this archetype that's mind blowing to me, and it's the engineer, right? Like something that you can go to school for and get a degree in, and then get hired in the conventional suit and tie job and be an engineer. Like that is the Magician. So the Magician isn't just about fantasy, although she fits very well into those more fantastical realms. However, we see magicians in everyday life, like we see that archetype expressed. So this is one of the archetypes where I find that really discussing the different expressions of her, which what I mean by that is just the different ways that she can show up, right? And still have the foundational parts of the archetype, but the nuances are different, the details are different. So the engineer is one where when you first realize that that's a magician, it kind of solidifies who this archetype is and what these gifts are within you that this archetype gives you. Chanel said, I resonate with the name Enchantress. I don't get sexy vibe. I think of her as something. I think of her as being flowy and bringing light. I love that. One of the expressions in the, I don't know if you've seen it, Chanel, but it's in the spiritual brand archetype book. And I call her the white witch, where it's like this healing vibe, right? Someone that's using magic, using her powers and her understanding of how things work in order to bring about healing. And that's like where the part white comes from, like that white light, right? The purity, the healing. So I love that that's what you picture. I love the feeling of Enchantress. I do. I've spoken about magic and always been drawn towards things magical. I love the engineer as well. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so with all of the archetypes, the thing that makes it an archetype is these foundational parts. The what I've been saying is the essence, right? So if we put an archetype in a pot on the stove and boiled it down, all that would be left would be the essence, like the soul, the part that has to exist in order for this archetype to exist. And so we can simplify this to be just traits, right? Characteristics, talents, but it's a lot deeper than that. It's basically like who this archetype is. Chanel said, I love the idea of the White Witch. If any of you have seen Alice in Wonderland, the remake with the live action version with Johnny Depp and Anne Hathaway is like her expression of the magician in that movie is the White Witch for sure. And she's wearing white, you know, and like she's in like her little apothecary room in the palace, and it's like leather and it's really like high end looking, but it also has that magical feel. But that's the white witch expression for sure. And also too, any kind of modern healers that use herbs or energy healing or anything like that are absolutely the white witch. So with the magician, with the enchantress, she is here first and foremost to perform magic. And I actually looked up the definition of magic yesterday because I was preparing for this and I was like, what is the actual definition? And let me pull it up because I loved the explanation of it. So it says the power of influencing the course of events by using mysterious or supernatural forces. So the thing about the magician and any of her expressions is that she understands how it works. So magic is never just this, like from the perspective of the magician, right? Magic is never just this random occurrence. It's not this thing that just happens and she doesn't know how it happened. It is a very specific set of laws. It's a very specific set of steps or rules. Like in this space, we tend to call them universal laws, right? Like law of attraction, manifestation, like that's a good example of it. But the magician archetype, there is some kind of system that she's using, of some kind of forces, and that's the power. That is her magic. So it's not just like she puts her palm out, right? And like magic flows through it and she doesn't understand how it happens. We do see that kind of storyline presented in some movies and some books, but that's always with the baby magician, right? When her powers are like first appearing and she's learning how to have control over them. But ultimately, in the high expression of the magician, when this archetype is strong within us and we've mastered her and we're developing her, she understands how this works. Magic is never a coincidence. And you'll see, I sent out an email like right before this that's talking about systems. Like magic is really just a system. So if you're a projector in the human design system, you'll resonate with this even more so. It will just feel like even more familiar. But what the magician is really, really gifted at is understanding systems. She understands how things work. I don't know if I've said this, but I am the magician archetype. I'm Scorpio rising. And so when I really started working with this archetype within myself and releasing the stereotypes that come with the magician of like, right, the witch, even though the witch is a really awesome expression of this archetype, but there's stereotypes that exist with that, right? Where it's surface level and we don't fully understand, or we think it's bad or it could be scary or something like that. So the more I deconditioned around my idea of the magician and the more I really started to see like, wait, I do understand systems. I love systems. And now that I understand how this works, I can create whatever result I want. It doesn't necessarily happen like in the movies where poof, I have a magic wand and it's instant. Although sometimes we do see that, and I'll talk about that more in a second. But it's basically like manifestation is my favorite example of this because with the manifestation process, if any of you practice that or use that, you are bending your reality, right? You are creating the results that you want, even though it's not always instantaneous. It might take a while, it might take your whole life, but that's okay, because you know that at some point the magic that you're using, the steps that you're following, the laws that um, you are playing with are creating the reality that you want. Let me check the comments and see what y'all are saying. Let me know if that resonates with y'all. So with the Magician brand, we see this one is, it might be scary when you first find out that you're the Enchantress archetype, because this is one of the brand archetypes that we have seen misused a lot in modern businesses and within modern companies. So a lot of that is going to be with that kind of instant transformation marketing that we see. And so sometimes that can lead to overpromising, right? Where it's like a business or a brand or a company promises that you'll get some kind of instant result. Like infomercials are an example of this. And then you get the product and it's like womp womp, and it doesn't actually fulfill that promise. Or there is some kind of instant result that comes with it, but there's some kind of side effect, some kind of danger that comes along with that instant transformation. For example, any kind of like medical weight loss drug. What is that one that's like really all the rage right now, and there's lots of controversy about it? Ozempic, something like that, right? Like I see posts all the time about that, but people are losing rapid amounts of weight really, really, really quickly, right? They're transforming. Always with the Magician, always with the Enchantress, there's going to be some kind of transformation that happens, especially when we're looking at this through the brand archetype. But with stuff like that, with like a weight loss drug, like, you know, what is the long-term health effects that come with that? There's going to be some kind of like, oftentimes with magic remedies, with magic products, there is like a sacrifice, like there's like a tit for tat kind of situation. So a lot of times what that does is, for those of us that have these heart-led, soul-led businesses where we're all about integrity, it can feel really overwhelming, and it can feel really scary, because we haven't seen the Magician brand modeled in a high integrity way, if that makes sense. Trilani said, I always recognize when I've used magic. Good. I love that. So some examples of just pretty conventional brands that we see out there, like not coaching businesses, not like program-based, service-based businesses, but more product-based businesses out there, would be like Botox, right? Botox is a really good example of a Magician brand, where you have wrinkles on your face, you have lines on your face, you go in, you get a shot, and boom, like it's like a literally like a magic pill, right? Like you're transformed, you're smooth, you're youthful. It's like the fountain of youth. Another really good example of the Magician archetype would be the brand MAC Cosmetics, MAC Cosmetics. They are all about transformation. They're really good at, like, if you ever go and get your makeup done by any MAC makeup artist, they're really good at understanding how colors work together, right? They're using this system, they're using these laws. They like MAC has so many different shades, and so they look at the undertones of your skin and they match everything, and they like really play with color theory, and they play with contouring and all of this stuff, and just transform that person who sat down in the makeup chair looking like one face and then walks away as an entirely different face. But they're using these universal laws in order to manipulate the reality, right? And manipulate isn't necessarily a bad thing, even though most of the time we hear that word, we have negative connotations with it. But the Magician knows how to manipulate. The high expression of the Magician is always going to manipulate reality, so it serves the world, right? So it's for the good of everybody involved. But one thing with the Magician is, magic is power, right? Understanding how things work and then knowing how to use that system to create the outcome that you want, whatever that outcome may be, is a ton of power. So if you're finding yourself as the Magician archetype, as the Enchantress, shying away from it, or like not putting it out there, right? Like you're not taking action, you're not being visible in some way, it's because there's some kind of fear around the power that you hold within you, some kind of fear of that potential. So some keywords for the Magician archetype: transformation, for sure, right? When someone works with you, they're going to come in one way and they're going to leave another way. There's going to be some kind of transformation. So most of the time with the type of work that we're doing, it's deeper than the surface, right? It is this like soul transformation. It's like this core transformation. Potential is another really, really powerful keyword for the magician archetype. So, as you know by now, the way that this spiritual brand archetype system works is when you show up in your brand in the full expression, like the fullest expression that's possible to you at that moment, when you show up as the full expression of the magician, you are activating and you are calling to other magicians. So, everybody in my audience that I talk to, everyone that reads my emails, everyone that comments on my Facebook posts, everyone that signs up for my programs or comes to my masterclass is the magician. Not necessarily all of them being Scorpio rising, right? But they're all the magician. So just know that you also, as the magician archetype in your brand, are going to be talking to other magicians. So the magician believes in magic, right? It's literally in the name of this archetype. So any kind of magical touch, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do it like that, right? Like we just talked about the engineer expression of this archetype where they don't talk about magic. It's very scientific. It's very black and white thinking. It's very proven. It's like textbook, right? But they are using magic because they understand how this works. They're using physics, they're using laws of the universe. They just are a little bit more conventionally accepted, if you will. However, for your brand, if words like magic, if that kind of theme and that kind of positioning feels good for you and feels fun, like just know that your people are absolutely going to resonate with that because this is the archetype that believes in magic. Lena said, I can feel scared of the power. Yes. Yeah. You, y'all may have heard me share this story before, but when I was really, it was like 2 years ago when I was working on shifting more into when I really wanted to start scaling my business, right? I really wanted to show up bigger online. I wanted to be more visible. Brand archetypes, I knew for sure were the thing that I wanted to use, the system that I wanted to use, but I was too scared to move forward as the magician. So my brain, I wasn't listening to my authority when I made this decision, not even close. My brain, my scared brain told me to show up in my brand as the sage, the mystic. So I did, and it worked. Like it was great. I worked with some great clients when I was like showing up in that as that archetype, and it was fun, but it felt really, really safe. And so finally, my authority, I finally listened to it and went all in as the magician, and my business just blew up in the best way possible. Like it was already doing well, and it's great. The brand archetype system will always work. Like it is an amazing system, and you can count on it always. But when you go all in with the archetype that's aligned with your rising sign, so for y'all, the magician, things just really, really take off because it's so who you are and it feels so good to you and also to the people that are in your world. But it's really scary because it's like, A, oh my gosh, what if I can't control all this power? B, what if like people reject me when I'm putting out my true self, right? There's a lot that goes with it. So I just want to normalize that fear, and that's a real thing. So if any of you are experiencing that, like that's real. Chanel said, are there any words that might be used in place of magic? Just curious. That's a really good question. Yeah, G said alchemy. Alchemy for sure. Are you asking that from the place of like the people that you speak to are more conventional, like more traditionally minded, or are you just curious? Because that will help just kind of guide some of those words. But transformation for sure. Um, let's see, vision. The magician is really big on vision. So vision, power, control even can resonate, especially if you work with more of like the more of like men based audiences or masculine energy type of audiences. Um, creation works for sure. Alchemy, like G said, transformation. I think I said that one. Engineer, right? Like you can engineer design, even design works well. So it just depends if you are trying to be less conspicuous, which I totally get, right? If let's say someone works with corporate, they don't want to walk into a corporate setting with these C-level people and be like magic, 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 because then people might roll their eyes, right? Because we've seen the magic thing done, and it does, like we were talking about at the beginning of this, sometimes have a negative connotation. So anything that has to do with like a person being able to intentionally create the outcome that they want is going to align to fit into, can replace the word magic. Chanel said vision happens to be one of my main words. I love that. So every single archetype, we haven't really talked about this at all, but this is something that if it resonates with you, it can be a really powerful just breadcrumb, really powerful little rabbit hole to go down. But every single archetype has a strategy. Just like every single human design type has a strategy, right? It's how their energy is designed to work with the world, how they are designed to take action, how they are designed to move through the world that they exist in. And it's, as you can tell, like there's 12 archetypes, right? We already have our strategies for our human design. It could be really convoluted. So if this resonates with you, you can pay attention. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. I just want to offer it. But the magician's strategy is to develop vision and live by it. So what that means is having this idea of what she wants to create, right? Being really intentional, envisioning. Or if you don't picture things in your mind, because not everybody operates like that, you can feel into it, right? Or create a vision board or something like that. I have a bullet journal that has all of my vision boards and all of my goals written down, and it's like my vision journal, so to speak. So creating vision and then living by it, meaning you're making decisions from that place of it already happened. You are feeling as if that thing has already happened for you, right? That is the magician's strategy. Whether she is completely out there woo woo magic, like all of the bells and whistles of the fantasy expression, or much more commonplace, right? Like think of an engineer, think of an architect, blueprint, right? They have a literal vision of what they're building and then they take action, believing, expecting, knowing that that is going to be what the final result is. And it is, because they're the magician. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be hiccups along the way for any expression, but that is our strategy as the magician, to develop vision and live by it. That right there, like when that really hits your soul, it's so life changing. Chanel said, I'm probably asking because I'm afraid to use the word. And that's a real concern, and that's totally fine. I will be the first to admit that magic is trite on the internet, right? The word magic is vastly overused, and we see it all the time. But when you have more than just the words, when you are embodying your archetype, meaning you have activated that part of yourself. You have activated that identity, because remember, these are codes. This is programming that already exists within you. This isn't something that you have to find outside of yourself. This isn't something that you have to remember, that I said, right? You don't have to look at notes and remind yourself. Like, this is you. It does take work to awaken that part of ourselves and strengthen that part of ourselves, for sure. But this is intuitive. This is who you are and who you're programmed to be, especially a Scorpio rising. And so that's the beauty of using this archetypal system based on our rising sign, is our words are packed with so much authenticity. The words that we use, that we say, that we put on our graphics or whatever it may be, while there might be a brand out there who says the word magic just casually, that's going to fall flat, right? That's not going to land. It's not going to have the actual intention within it. However, us as the magicians, when we say it, it actually means something. So that's what archetypes, that's what brand archetypes really do, is it gives meaning to a brand. It really breathes life into it. And it doesn't just have to be the word magic, right? It can be any of those words that we just went over: vision, intention, creation, design, transformation, alchemy, whatever it might be. And that's what's so cool about the archetypes. And that goes for all of them, right? With, like, let's say, the ruler, the queen, when she says power, when she says control, that is going to pack such a punch, versus if the lover tries to say that and they just say it. So, hi, Renee. Working with moms, I don't want to use magic for a mainstream audience. Yeah. And I think that's a really wise decision. And that's something that your authority can absolutely guide you on as well, is what expression. So let me pull up. I have a resource. All of you that are in Spellbound with me, this is available in your Brand Rising course. And it will also be, oh my gosh, my Gmail kicked me off. I don't think I can pull up the PDF right now, but there's a resource in your portal that is the Spiritual Brand Archetype system, and it has 5 different expressions for every single one of the archetypes. So if you haven't looked at that yet, go look at it for Scorpio rising, and you'll see the Alchemist, you will see the White Witch, you'll see the Enchantress, you'll see the I think the Catalyst is one of them, maybe. the engineer. I think I called her the Imagineer, and then one other that I can't remember off the top of my head. But it just gives us different ideas, different models, right? Different visual ideas of how you can still embody all of the foundational parts of this archetype, yet not have to step into that cliche, trite example that you know isn't going to resonate with your audience. So I like that y'all are thinking like this. Power is one of the words, yeah, because we understand magic, because we understand how things work. And when you understand how things work, that's all the power in the world. So, yeah, power is absolutely one of our words. Trilani said, I love vision boards and anything equal to them. Cool. Okay, so what questions do you have about the magician? I'm going to dive into your charts, but I just want to know what part of does any part of this archetype feel confusing? Does this one feel natural? Does it feel, I think the biggest thing that comes up in terms of the magician archetype, the enchantress, is the idea I have to make my branding purple. I have to use the word magic, and I have to be like a witchy kind of vibe. And that's not the case at all. The visuals can be expressed in any way. There can be a magician brand who never uses the word magic, who has colors that are very, very classy, right? Like pure black, pure white, and maybe some taupes in there. Like that absolutely is still the magician brand, even if the word magic is never uttered and there's no purple, there's no like stars, right? There's no magic wand emojis or anything like that. So just know you don't have to be that stereotypical magic expression. One thing that's really interesting about this is in this space that we are on this part of the internet with the spiritual entrepreneurs, right? People that use manifestation, people that use astrology, people that use human design, people that use all of these systems that exist and we learn how to use them, right? We understand how they work. That's the magician. So the things that we see and like the more magical essences and the more magical visuals, that does not have to be how your brand shows up unless you want to. Sometimes it feels too big. You spoke about hope. Can you tell a bit about the hope for Scorpio rising? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that question. I love that question. Chanel said, yes, I just got a white office chair and black and white wallpaper for my workspace. I love that. And that goes perfectly with your winter brand. Yeah, so Lena, hope. That is like for all of the archetypes, right? This is why archetypal messaging and telling our brand story that is aligned with our brand archetype storyline, the hope, right? What happens at the end? What is the end of the story? So for the magician, that is ultimate transformation. That is someone wanting a magical life and actually getting it. So a good example of this is Cinderella. Cinderella at the beginning of the movie, right? She's cleaning the floor. She's wearing like brown, looks very itchy, the dress that she's wearing, right? But everything about her life is drab and it's boring and there's no magic whatsoever. And by the end of it, she's this princess. And obviously, at this point in society and us as women, like we know that that's that literal outcome that she gets marrying the prince and running off. Like that's not it, but the deeper thing that's being shared there is that transformational storyline. So with the magician archetype, there's going to be massive transformation. So what I like to do, and you'll notice this in the way that I sell, is I like to speak to that in transformation, right? What is that happy ever after moment when the credits roll on the movie? Like, what is happening? What is that in vision? So, really speaking to that, really painting that picture for your audience, really getting clear for yourself on what is it that my offer is creating for them, right? What is that end goal? What is that end vision? What is that transformation? And what will that look like? So, really, really, really just creating as deep of a picture of that final point that you can. So that means like how will it feel? What does it look like? How does it smell, right? What does it taste like? Really that's it, like helping their mind go to that end goal, because remember, that is the magician's strategy, is to create vision and live by it. So for you as the magician brand, it is your job to create that vision and tell it to them over and over and over and over and over. Does that make sense? Let me know if you have any questions about that. But I think that this is true for everybody. Um, and thank goodness for it. But the industry is moving, like the online space, right? We're moving out of speaking to the pain points, saying you're not good enough, so buy my product so you will be, right? Like we've moved out of that. But the magician is one that is always going to be speaking to that future vision. The magician's never going to find success by selling to someone's pain points, because the magician wants to know what that transformation is. They need you to be the bigger magician, the more advanced magician who can like speak that vision into existence for them, and then they grab onto it and create it with your help. Trilani said that resonates well. I've never liked speaking to pain points. Yes, makes sense. Cool. Another thing too with the magician that is really powerful for you to know as you're developing your messaging and your offers and you're working with your hi Karina fits in with my shore environment. Yeah. Um so one thing that is really powerful to know when you're developing your messaging, when you're developing your offers, when you're writing your emails, right? When you're speaking to your people is that one of the big parts of the magician storyline. So if you were in the Magic is Real masterclass that we did, by the way, April feels like the longest month in the world. Does anybody else feel like that? Like it's been a great month, but I'm like, how is this month not over? But anyways, I can't remember when we even had that class. Was it last week, a couple weeks ago? But in the course portal, I put the storylines for all 12 of the archetypes. So for the magician storyline, there is a moment where magical abilities start to show themselves, right? And so the way that I like to think of this is like in my magician storyline, I found a tool, and that was human design. So some people see this though as like intuitive powers, psychic powers, right? Like actual magic powers like coming from within them. And other magicians can have this storyline and this moment of discovering something outside of them and learning how to use it, like human design, astrology, manifestation, anything like that. So both of those are aligned with the magician. But a really, really important part of the magician's storyline is she then goes and seeks mentorship. She trains, she works with another magician in order to really develop power and develop control over her magical abilities, right? So that can look as simple as buying a human design book, taking a human design training, purchasing a manifestation course, or listening to a podcast about whatever system or ability or whatever that might be. So for you though, as the magician brand, right, the way that you're going to be positioned in this story is you are that stronger magician. You are the mentor for the baby magician. So the people that are resonating with your message are just starting to like realize, oh my gosh, magic is real, and it's like found me. What is happening? So the more that you can speak to them like you see the potential in them, right? Like they're not crazy. They are magical. Magic is real, and you see that potential in them, the more it's going to strengthen that magic within them. And that is part of the magician to magician mentorship storyline. Does that make sense? So one way that I do that is all of my content, my business has crossed the $500,000 line now at this point, which is so cool. It just happened a couple weeks ago. But the only thing that I have done in terms of marketing and in terms of like creating connection and engagement with my audience has been to show you and tell you over and over and over that I see the potential in you and that you're magic. And the way that I do that is through those human design reports, those mini readings that we do every single week. I just posted one. And my goal always with that, like with the messaging of those, is you are magic, you are strong, you are amazing. Here it is. Can you see it? It's on paper. So that's my whole intention with my marketing, is to tell you I see the potential in you, and it's my job to get you to see the potential in you. And that is like the storyline and developing and awakening the magician in you. Yeah. Thank you, Trilani. So that's one thing too. And also it really helps like mindset wise to start to like to practice thoughts that feel really good for you, like, oh my gosh, my clients are so powerful, oh my gosh, my audience is amazing, oh my gosh, these people are magical. So to really focus on that and to have that be your narrative in your brain when you think about your clients, right? When you think about your audience, they can feel that from you. Their magician can feel that from you. So that's a huge important part of that connection. um so, and it's an easy thing to do, and it makes a huge difference in how people feel with you and how they feel in your world. Okay, so any other questions about the magician? We're going to dive into your charts in just a second. I just want to make sure that this archetype feels really good for y'all. Okay, I don't see any. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, and all of the trainings so far, we've looked at different parts of the chart because I think that different parts are more resonant for different archetypes, right? Because different archetypes think differently than, like, we, the magician, we care about magic. We think magically. We think in systems. We think like, I understand how this works. While the lover doesn't really think a lot. Like, she experiences, right? She feels, she bees, and that's a lot different. So the different parts of the chart, understanding how to work with it, and look at it differently depending on the archetype makes a big difference. Aw, Lena said, love what you've shared and feel very seen already. That makes my heart so happy. Thank you for that feedback. I love that. Okay, so let's look at your charts. What we're going to talk about today for these charts is we're going to look at, and this is going to be interesting. I don't think I've ever done a reading like this. Hello, Peppers. Can you hear them? um, so we're going to look at the head center and the ajna center. We're going to look at the gates that you have defined. We're going to look at what those centers look like for your charts, and we're going to look at any channels that you might have. And the reason why is the magician, ultimately, the way that she really finds success and really breaks through and really creates magic, right? Or doesn't create magic, the way that she creates with magic and through magic is by this deep understanding of how something works, how the system that is her magic works, because magic is just a system. That is all it is. So that's going to be the first thing for you as the magician archetype to really get clarity on, is what is your system? So looking at the services that you provide, looking at the tools that you work with and that you're certified in and trained in can be a huge clue here, right? So human design, perfect example. Astrology, chakras, Reiki, manifestation, anything like that. And it doesn't have to be esoteric like that. It doesn't have to be woo-woo like that. It can be engineering, right? Or whatever it may be. So really looking and being like, what is the thing that I understand, right? What is this, like, what are these universal laws, the way things work? What is that for me? And I also want to dive into your charts to understand, or to help you understand, how your brain works, how your mind works, how your mind is designed to see and understand these systems. Let me know if anybody has any questions about that, if the word system is resonating with you, or if it feels a little bit far off, because I can definitely explain it in a different way if it feels weird. Okay, we're gonna start with Lena's. Lena said, magic is real. I felt magic all my life. Made a good business on the quote. You've got magic the world needs. Oh, I love that. Then last year, so much bad stuff happened. And I felt like I closed off of the magic. Yeah, off of the potential and magical kingdoms within and without. Yeah. I like that you said magical kingdoms within and without, because that is that's one of the biggest parts of the magician, is our magic starts within. The world that we've created within is the world that ends up being created on the outside, regardless of the expression of the magician that you're embodying. Okay, so when I saw this whole place and you talking about being the Enchantress, I thought of that. There's a level of opening to that magic again. Yay! Yay! That's the thing, is like, magic, from what I have found, it really does find us, right? And as the magician archetype, like, you are, I don't want to say necessarily entitled to a life of magic, but you're designed, like, you're programmed, you are coded to be a magnet to magic. Like that is your medium, that is your art, that is what you're here to master, is magic. And magic is just a system of some sort. Okay, so, oh, okay, Lena. So Lena has a completely open head center. Let me share my chart. This is my chart, but this top triangle right here, that's called the head center. So hers is completely open, meaning that it's white on the chart, but there's also no numbers colored in. So the head center is in charge. The head center is basically like our unconscious mind. It's the part of it's our thinking that we can't control, right? Like when we have thoughts cross our mind, we're like, whoa, where did that come from? That's the unconscious mind. And it's also the stuff that we never even see, those thoughts, right? Like they're never like brought to the surface. They're buried, all of that stuff. But the head center is also in charge of questions, and it's in charge of inspiration. So the open centers on our chart, any of these shapes, any of these 9 shapes right here that are white on your chart are undefined or open. Basically the same thing. There's a little bit of nuance, but for this training, we're just going to go with they're the same thing to keep it simple. But that is where you are constantly absorbing and amplifying outside energy. And the way that it shows up, the center is going to tell you like the different theme and the type of energy. So that's where all of our conditioning happens, meaning where we're holding on to other people's beliefs, where we are picking up on other people's ideas and feelings and basically creating a life based on other people's things. And human design is so beautiful because it helps us to see like, okay, so in this area of life, I'm feeling everyone else's stuff here. Like I'm picking up outside energy here. Okay, what might that look like? And then when you notice that, you can ask yourself, do I actually want to feel this? Do I actually want to think this? Or is this something that I'm just going to hold space for and then make my own really aligned, really intentional decision about what I want to believe? So, with that conditioning, like that's where all of our problems essentially start. But human design gives us a map to work through it and to start to shed the layers that aren't us and to step into our true selves. So, with all of that, the reason I said all of that is because once we get to a point where we have deconditioned our centers, our open centers, our undefined centers, even when we first start the process, that is when we start to really unearth the wisdom that belongs there. And I like that word unearth. Like if you think of like digging out dirt from something, right? Like we are unearthing the treasure, the wisdom, the magic that lives in these centers. So Lena, for you, with that head center being completely open, and this is going to be true for any of you where that top triangle on your chart is white, you might feel completely overwhelmed by ideas, right? You might feel inspired all the time to a point where it's a detriment for you, where you have so many ideas, you don't know how to move forward, you don't know which one to start with, you feel excited about all of them, and it's like you're having to choose between your children, right? And it feels entirely overwhelming, and it leads to mental overwhelm, it leads to stress, it leads to anxiety, and it leads to you not pursuing any project, right? It's like you just get paralyzed by too many decisions by being too inspired. Let me know if that's resonating with any of you. Quantum healing energies, yeah. My head is white, 0 numbers. My ajna is white, only the number 11. Yeah, so then what I'm saying about the open head center, it pertains to you as well, for sure, Trilani. Karina says resonates. Yes, that's totally me. Yes, totally. Yeah. So with that head center, it can feel like if you feel literal pressure, like physical pressure in your head, that is because you are picking up on other people's thoughts, other people's ideas. The cool thing about the undefined, there's a lot of cool things about the undefined head center, but in terms of inspiration, it means that you're going to get inspired anywhere you go. Anywhere you go, whether you smell something delicious, whether you see a really cool, like, maybe like a mural, maybe you're like in a new city and you see graffiti on the wall, right? Or just somebody saying something some way, or something you read in a book, or a training that you watch. Like you are here for a life of inspiration, and that inspiration comes in all different from all different sources and all different places. But what that can feel like is like you have all of these puzzle pieces and you're trying to put this puzzle together, and then you realize, Oh my gosh, every single one of these 1,000 puzzle pieces is from a different puzzle. Are you kidding me? So it feels like you can never kind of piece the whole picture together, if that makes sense. So if you've ever felt like that, where like I have all of this energy up here, like I have all of these ideas, but what do I do with it? I don't know how to create something. I don't know how to finalize. I don't know how to bring something into the world. That is the best analogy that I have come across for the plight of the Open Head Center. Trelawney said, yes, totally freeze sometimes. G said, I always get inspired by so many ideas, but then get overwhelmed and don't take action on any of them. Lena said, yes, resonates. Feel like I need to feel it in my body to know if I'm really meant to go for it. Yeah. Very inspired by everything. Haha, yes, it makes sense with the puzzle. LOL, that's a great metaphor. A bunch of different puzzles. Yeah. And that can feel like, kind of like, what the heck? You know, like, really? But like Lena said, so Lena said, I feel like I need to feel it in my body to know if I'm really meant to go for it. That is the solution there. And it's so much easier said than done. I have an undefined head center as well, so I totally feel this as well. But like really running those ideas through our authority and letting our authority tell us if this idea is the one to move forward with or not. So, you know, you can support yourself as much as you can. I have like some manic idea journals. I have I have so many notes on my phone that I just scribble things furiously, like I type them in and then never look at them again. I send emails to myself and then I get stressed out because I'll have 100 emails in my inbox from myself that I'm ignoring because I'm like, ah, right? So it's like whatever you need to do to kind of corral the crazy can help. You still might feel a little bit manic and a little bit crazy with all the ideas, but to know which one to move forward on, definitely listening to your authority. I've heard people that have practices when it comes to ideas where they're like, they thank the idea, right? They're like, thank you. I released you. Like, go find someone else. Like, I don't have space for you right now. And you're such a beautiful idea. And I've heard people like share stories where, you know, they released the idea and then they saw in 3 months later a book come out with that same idea or something like that. So, you know, practicing different things that gives you a sense of control over it, but also just knowing and accepting that you are here to have constant energy flowing into your head center from the outside world, and it feels amplified. So if you're feeling that pressure, sometimes what I like to do is literally go outside and go for a walk and try to move the energy from my head into my body to kind of like process it and get it out. Like I said, I have manic notes scribbled everywhere that probably if anyone ever like went through any of my possessions, they'd be like, this person is a serial killer. This is crazy. But like, it's just, I get an idea and I have to write it down. But then very, 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 very seldom do I actually take action on it. So whatever you need to do to feel like, okay, like I get it, I accept this part of myself, but this practice helps it feel better. But let's talk about the positive. Let's talk about the gifts of that open head center. Let me see what y'all are saying. Trelawney said, I can feel it in my body, but I'll go to bed and in the morning it's not the same. Evernote is great for organizing ideas and notes. Oh, I love that about having gratitude for the ideas and releasing them. There's a book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic, and I read it years ago, maybe like 10 years ago now, a long time ago. But I remember she was talking about ideas as if they are like these outside entities, right? Like these outside things. Like, and I believe that. I really do. Because you can see it like, oh my gosh, I had that idea, right? But you didn't take action on it, and the idea went to someone else and they did it. So I definitely think it's like that. Trelawney said, my phone is full of notes. I have so many notebooks full too. Yeah. So with that open head center, you know, remember we're the reason I'm looking at these parts of the chart right now is because we're the magicians. We want to understand how things work. That is how we tap into our magic. That is how we use magic, and that is how we create the reality that we can envision. So with that undefined head center, that means that you basically, if you think about it literally, what's happening in that center is we are absorbing and amplifying outside energy. So, what I mean by that is other people's thoughts. So, you can literally feel into how people are thinking. You can, some people with an undefined head center that are really gifted, like they're really gifted psychically, right? They have psychic abilities, they can read other people's thoughts, they can see other people's thoughts. So just know that if you've noticed those kind of traits in yourself, it's not a fluke, it's not something random, like it's supported by your human design chart. So that's a gift in itself. But really, what this means is with that undefined head center, you literally have an open mind. Your mind is this vessel for the universe to pour ideas into, to channel into. So if you, as the magician, right, like I was saying, the magician is a master of systems. That is at the core of this archetype. You are designed to understand systems. You are designed to understand how things work. But sometimes that might be like the universe giving you insight or giving perspective into a system that no one's ever explained before, where all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait, it works like that? Or like, wait, I feel like I understand this on a whole new level. Have you, any of you ever experienced that where you're like, how did, like, whoa, how, I understand this. Like, that feels really deep. That feels really big. No one told me that. Like, how do I know that? How did my brain, like, how did my brain get to that point? But it's real, right? It checks out, like, it works with the system. So if you've ever felt like that, like, felt like something just dropped in, where it was either an idea or this deeper understanding of something, that is that undefined head center and the magician working together. Trilani said yes, and it felt like second nature. Yes, me, lol. Oh my gosh. Yes, how I created my heart. Oh, hi, Shannon. How I created my heart song chakra framework to integrate chakras with legal. I love that. And that, oh, Shannon, thank you for sharing that. That is another thing that the magician archetype is so gifted at, is blending systems. So you can see it in my work. We can see it in Shannon's work that she just shared. Shannon's a lawyer, and she uses like chakra framework, and she integrates that with the legal system, right? So we can see how different systems are all the same. Oh, this is, the comments are good for this one. Y'all are excited. I'm excited too. Lena said, yes, this resonates. It's like I understand things about human design without reading it, and in many others too. That was my experience with it as well. G said it's like, and the mind blowing emoji. Yep. Wow. I am rising, Virgo rising. However, this is so me. I have an open head. Yeah. So, another thing with the magician is, let me back up a second. So I have been seeing, I see angel numbers a lot, as I'm sure all of you do as well. And when I see the same one, I'm like, what does that mean for me? Because, you know, angel numbers are, they have like a general definition, but they're so personal to people. So since the beginning of this year, since January, I've been seeing the number 108 everywhere, not just on the clock, but like everywhere. License plates, receipts, just everywhere you could think of, 108. And normally, when I see angel numbers or some kind of repeating message, I get it. Like, I know what the message is and I understand what's being said. But for 108, it took me a really long time to start to understand. And I'm talking like 3, 4 times a day since the beginning of this year. I've been seeing 108 everywhere. And so it still hasn't had this big epiphany of like, oh, that's what's being articulated to me. But I'm starting to understand more that it is a message from source or whatever for the magician in me, that everything is connected, right? Everything is connected. That's what 108 means. Every time I look it up, that's what comes up. It's like it's the connectedness of everything. And the magician, that is one of our gifts, is we understand that everything is connected. Nothing in someone's life is compartmentalized at all, even though it might look like it. But all of the systems are connected. So if you're noticing, like with Shannon, she noticed the similarities and the connections between the chakra system and the legal system. I noticed the connections between the branding system and the human design system. If you have multiple, I'm putting that in quotes because they're actually not multiple, but if you have different areas that you understand and you can see how they're connected and how they can be layered together and how they can be used together, that is the magician in you. So that's especially true if you have that open head center. It doesn't mean that that's not going to happen if it's defined for you in your head center, but the open head center is an open mind. So it means that your mind is here to stretch. It means that your consciousness, your thinking is here to expand, right? That you are here to perpetually feed yourself bigger and bigger thoughts and ideas so that you can think bigger. It's really, really, really cool when we look at it through the lens of the magician. Trilani said, I blend modalities all the time. Yeah, that's a gift of the magician for sure. Like Ra, right, the founder of Human Design, he was so, I don't know what his rising sign is. I've actually never looked. I need to. But the expression that he gave to us with the human design system was so the magician, right? He understood how this worked. He gave us a new system, but really human design is a blend of 4 different systems that already existed. He channeled it, but then he also added more stuff to it after the voice experience, and he understood how these other systems worked and saw the connection. G said, I love looking at open head centers in this light. Good. Good. Okay, so next let's look at, let's see, let's talk about the undefined ajna. So the triangle right underneath the head center, it's this one. On my chart it's blue, but let's talk about it if it's white. So if that center is white for you, so first of all, that one's called the ajna center. I like to think of the ajna center as the conscious mind, right? So it's the thinker part of us, the part of us that can think about what we're thinking about, how like you can write down all of your thoughts on a piece of paper, right? Like we humans are the only species that has that ability. A deer can't think about what they're thinking about, right? A cat can't think about what she's thinking about, at least that we know of. Who knows? But that is a gift of the human, and that is what the ajna center is in charge of. So if that center is undefined for you, it works just like how we were talking about with the head center. You are constantly absorbing and amplifying outside energy. So this one is really, really interesting. The ajna center doesn't get talked about a lot, at least through what I've seen in the human design world. And it's not a super sexy center, right? Like the sacral is really sexy to talk about. The heart center is really sexy to talk about. Like there's like interesting things to talk about there. The ajna is just like, oh, you're thinking, like, right? Like your opinions. But it's actually so, so, so deep and a super, super, super powerful center, especially through how we're thinking about it. So if you have an undefined ajna center, what that means is your entire life you have been absorbing and amplifying other people's belief systems, other people's beliefs about life. So any kind of limited beliefs, any kind of limited thinking, any kind of thinking at all, you are picking up constantly from the world around you. So if you've ever done any work like thought work like that to see like, wait, where are my limiting beliefs around this? Why do I think this? And you've ever tracked back like, oh, I believe this because of this, or I believe this because my mom told me this, right? Or I believe this because this is what we believed in my household growing up. Any of that stuff, you're gonna like find so much just junk in your conscious thinking, in your belief system that you didn't realize was there. And maybe it's beautiful thinking, right? Maybe you were raised by people that were just the most compassionate, like deep thinkers, right? They thought in this really big, really potential filled way. And if that's the case, that's amazing. But if you were raised by people where their thinking was limited or you didn't agree with some of their stuff, like chances are you have that programming in your undefined ajna center because that's how it works. Trilani said, yes, I've had to do some huge reprogramming. But the cool thing about the ajna center is it's the part of us that can think about what we're thinking about. Where with the head center, that's the subconscious stuff, and that's way more difficult because it's not conscious, right? With the ajna, it takes a lot of work for sure. I'm not minimizing it by any means, but basically looking at that belief system. And if you notice, belief system, right, has the word system in it. So for the magician, that is everything. Really looking at what systems am I creating magic with? What systems have I picked up from the outside world that my magic is now being created from? And you might find, I don't like this system that I've learned. I want a better system. I want a bigger system. I want a more magical system. And that is your choice, and you're able to do that. Does that make sense? Is that landing? So that's really important for any of you that are the magician archetype that have that undefined ajna center, is to really look at your thoughts, really look at your thinking, and know that you have the full capability to reprogram that. And again, that is a lifelong mission. It's not an easy feat, but that's where you can start. Because all of us, right, all humans are creating with their thinking. It just might not feel like it because their results don't feel magical. So if you want magical results, you have to start with magical thoughts, and the thoughts, those magical thoughts are going to start in that ajna center. So let's talk about that ajna center if it's defined. If that triangle on your chart is colored in, so like on my chart, if it looks like this, it doesn't have to be blue, it can be any color. That means you have a defined ajna center. So the defined centers on our chart are not immune to conditioning. They're not immune to showing up in the low expression. We just call it something different. We call the defined centers basically there's shadow. There's a shadow side to it, right? And there's the high expression of it. So what I have found in terms of our beliefs, because with the magician, everything starts with the way that the magician thinks. Magical results are created from magical thinking. Ordinary results are created from ordinary thinking. Horrible results are created from horrible thinking. And I'm not putting blame on anybody. I'm just like explaining the magician, the way that this archetype works. So if you have a defined ajna center, you absolutely might be creating, and this is another just thing to look at for the magician, is if you're curious about what system you're using or how your magician is creating magic, look at the results that you've created, and that's going to give you really good insight into how your magician archetype is currently showing up, right? Her status, if you will. So if you have a defined ajna center, you absolutely can reprogram your beliefs. But what I have found with any kind of shadow work, with any kind of reprogramming when it comes to defined centers, it's like the energy there is very, very stubborn, because it's the defined centers on your chart are where you have consistent access to that energy. So consistent patterns, right? Consistent way of thinking. If something happens, if an outside stimulus happens, you're going to have a consistent, predictable reaction to it. So it's like muscle memory. It is this muscle memory that has been built into your energetic aura. You can change it and you can shift it, but I do find that the energy and the defined centers is a lot more stubborn. Where when we have those open centers, like the deconditioning work is definitely hard. It's all work, it's all hard, right? But the shifts tend to happen quicker, bigger, more obvious with the open centers, with the undefined centers, than with the defined centers. So stick with it though. If you are determined and you are committed to reprogramming your belief system around what you can have in life, right? Around how much success you can create, around what your brand can be like, around how much money you can make, any of that kind of stuff. You can absolutely shift that and change that with the defined ajna. But what I have noticed is that that energy just tends to be stubborn. So stick with it. You might not see any changes for years, but then all of a sudden you will see a shift because it's consistent. So once you really start to break through, and like I like to think of it like with when we think of our literal thinking, right? We have neural pathways in our brain. You have to atrophy certain pathways until like the new one that you're building, that new thought becomes the new superhighway for your mind to think as. So that's just something to know about the process of shifting your beliefs when it comes to a defined ajna center. Is it might feel like nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, but the more you stick with it and keep going, like you will see that final boom, and then that's your new consistent way. So it's pretty cool. Agni said about 108, 112 chakras in the human body. However, 108 to be taken care of for takes care of their own. 108 is a magic number in the East connected to sacred geometry. 108, I've heard of it before. I just never have dug that much into it. So yeah, anything that y'all can share, I would love to know for sure, because it's something. It keeps showing up. Okay, and then finally, let's talk about that defined head center for the magician. That's going to operate in the same way, right? And by the way, if you have a defined head center, that means you automatically have a defined ajna center as well. So one thing that can happen when both your head center and your ajna center are defined, meaning those shapes are colored in on your chart, that is your consistent way of being, right? That is how your energy consistently and repeatedly and predictably shows up over and over and over again. So it can show up in the like shadow side as being closed-minded. So if you find yourself being skeptical or cynical or unbelieving or doubtful of magic, that is where that work starts. So sometimes it can be helpful to look at like, well, how was I raised? Was I raised in a really conventional household? Was I raised in a really traditional household? And then that's why I like the expression of the engineer for the magician so much, is like it really, that closed mind or that stubborn mind or that doubtful mind, right? That has that conditioning or is in the shadow side of it, can't really argue that with the engineer. Like the engineer is a very proven, very accepted, right? Very mainstream profession and role. So if you are finding that you have those two centers defined, the more evidence that you can find of magic in the real world, right? I'm putting that in quotes, the more that you're going to help that brain of yours, that stubborn, small-minded brain shift into the higher expression where it's willing to believe that magic is real. And also too, if you're finding there's any kind of cynicism in the defined Hadin Ajna, trying phrases out like, well, maybe magic is real, or I'm willing to believe that magic is real. You might not be able to jump all the way into magic is real and I totally believe it. It might be more like, I'm open to believing magic is real. Like, I'll consider it. And then, okay, like I could see how engineering is considered magic. I can see how Botox is considered magic. So giving yourself very blatant and realistic examples can be really helpful if that's something that you're experiencing. Okay, so tell me how you're feeling in terms of the magician. Does that resonate, like that desire to understand how things work? That is how the magician creates. The magician is a master of systems. The magician is someone that is going to, you might not get it right away, but once you get how something works, like you get it, like you see it in a way that no one else can understand it or see it, because that's your magic. I had so magical thinking as a child and spiritual, but nobody in my family had that. I resonate. Good. This archetype, it's so, I mean, this is my archetype, so she's really, really, really special to me. But the magician, magic truly is real, and it's a system. There's like any kind of system that you understand and can operate as a master, like that is you being the magician. It all resonates. I love systems. I 1000% resonate. Is it then connected with our channels, with how our magic runs in our body? I wouldn't say like the channels are how your specific magic runs, but it's more so of, so the magic that the magician is doing is this ability to deeply understand and use systems regardless of the expression. So your channels and your gates can tell you how you understand and perceive systems. So for example, if you have the channel 2343, that's connecting your throat to your ajna. That means that you're going to, that one's called the freak to genius, and that one is like weird thinking, right? Odd thinking, freaky thinking, but also genius thinking. So that means that the way that you're going to basically understand things and the way that your brain operates and the way that you think is going to feel weird to other people, and it's going to be new and it's going to be different. So really working on accepting all of your beliefs, all of your perceptions, all of the ways that you understand things is the first place to start with that. And then learning how to only share it with people that have invited you, right? Or people that you trust or something like that. So it gives you, your channels give you insight, especially the ones in the head and the ajna, of how your brain operates and how you see the world and how you think. And your channels and your gates give you insight into your natural gifts that you have and your natural abilities. She said, I feel so understood and seen. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yay. How does it connect to channels, for example, 1858? So we're not going to get into that. We're at the hour now. So if I go into all of the channels, that is, I feel like we would be on the line forever, which would be fun. We just don't have space for it. So what I would recommend is just to look up those channels and see like what the gifts are that it gives you, right? What are those characteristics it gives you? What are those traits that that channel gives you? And what does that mean in terms of how you understand things, how you create? So the magician is the creator, right? We also, the magician and the visionary have a lot in common in that they both have this ability to imagine something in their brain, in their mind, and then bring it to life. So your channel is really, when you're looking at it through the lens of the magician, it tells you how your brain thinks. It tells you how you are designed to basically bring ideas and visions and manifestations to life. And that is the magician creating, the magician doing magic. Okay, any other questions about the magician archetype? or the Enchantress or the Alchemist, whatever you want to call her. By the way, y'all, Taylor Swift is Scorpio rising, and her brand archetype, I've studied this obviously a lot because I'm crazy, but I would say she's the alchemist expression for sure. For sure. I'm diving into my gate in the Ajna. It's pretty cool. It links to what you've already said. Gate 11. Yeah. Shannon said this was so insightful. Good. Oh, yay. I'm so happy. So tomorrow, the Seeker, that is Sagittarius rising. We're doing that one at 9:30 Central, 9:30 a.m. Central, and then we have the next day the Queen, and then we have the Rebel, and then we have the Mystic, and then we're done. And then also too, so this Wednesday, in just 2 days, we have day one of the new Paradigm Platform Masterclass. This is a free masterclass that anyone can come to. And then Thursday we have day 2. So there'll be different days, different content. We're going to dive into your human design environment. We're going to look at your midheaven, and we're also going to talk about brand messaging and positioning. But the point of the class is to really get some good insight into how you can use your chart to figure out where you're designed to show up online. G said it felt as if you've seen my life and in my mind. Good. I've loved this. Yay. No, I haven't done the manifesting generator one yet. Yay. I did the projector training a couple weeks ago, and then we went into the Spellbound launch, and so that put the human design type trainings on hold. But as soon as this launch is closed, I will do the generator training. I'll give you guys notice and all the things and promote that so you see it, and then I'll do the manifesting generator one after that. So we'll continue with that series after the launch is done. But launches always, they're very, very fun, but they always throw the schedule kind of off. Yeah, well, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your questions and for your engagement. Also, too, if this is resonating with you and the archetypes and looking at it through the lens of our human design and all of that stuff for our brand is resonating with you, doors to my program called Spellbound, The Magic of Client Attraction, are currently opened, and they close at the end of this week. So that is the joy of my life. It is my signature program. This is our 3rd iteration of it. We do live group cohorts, so you'll go through all the modules as they drip out, but we'll have weekly calls, and we also have a private Facebook community. So the whole intention of Spellbound is to really help you, first and foremost, learn who your brand is, and then learn how to express her to the world through tools like the brand archetype and through tools like finding your brand message, your brand values, all of that stuff in your human design chart. So this is a very hands-on program, and you'll walk away with a lot of tangible things. We have a whole module on your aligned offer. We go into content strategy. We go into messaging. We'll expand more on platforms. So we're talking about that in the classes, but Spellbound goes really deep into all of that. So I'm really showing you how to take the abstract stuff in the chart and turn it into actual real life deliverables, if you will, for your business and for your brand. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. If you have any needs or anything in terms of payment plans or whatever, my door is wide open. So feel free to message me or you can email me. But this is the last week of all of the launch stuff. So no pressure whatsoever. But if you're curious about it or you want to join us, now is the time, and then you'll get instant access to Brand Rising as soon as you enroll. So Brand Rising is the pre-work, and that walks you through how to activate your archetype, your brand archetype within yourself, and strengthen that, because remember, your archetype is in you already. It's not something that you have to figure out how to become or be. It's basically just something that you might need to awaken or just learn how to continually strengthen and master. So I launch Spellbound usually twice a year. We will launch it again this year in November. But that's been the pattern so far. And then you'll get lifetime access to all of the content. You will get lifetime access to the Facebook group that always stays open. And then I always, or not always, what we've started doing, which I'm loving so much, is that if you were in a past round of Spellbound and you want to come into the new Facebook group when that opens so that you can go through the content again or finish up any of the stuff that you didn't get through during your round, you can do that and be in the energy of the new group and get support from me in the Facebook group too. So I try to make it as supportive and accessible as possible. And then if you are in Color Alchemy, you have a $77 discount. So you can email me for that code. But yeah, this has been so fun. I love talking about the Magician. And then any questions or anything that you need, just let me know. But other than that, I hope you have an awesome evening, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.